Hello, everyone. This is Gerald Kopinski and Michael Pontelli, and we're here to talk to you guys about the game that we designed called Card Z. It's a zombie survival game that started about 5 years ago after I had completed a zombie survival book that I had been allowed to write through Aquarius Publishing. And after playing some zombie games, I'm a board gamer. Grew up on Dungeons and Dragons and that kind of stuff. Just felt that there was maybe a need out there for a zombie game that was going to be very gritty and very realistic, with like firearms that jam on a maybe 2% chance, and also firearms that need the exact ammunition. Like a M19 1145 needs 45 caliber bullets to operate, whereas the AR-15 is going to need 5.56, and we're going to be counting bullets, and also a game where that if you're bitten by a zombie, that's it, lights out. And my theory on zombies is that they are pretty easy to kill and for sure inferior in every way to a human being, but it is the fact that one bite and you're infected is what makes them terrifying. So with that, I set out to make a kind of realistic sim tabletop game that you could play in one night. Pursued it for about a year, and then presented that first version to Michael Pontelli, who's also a big game designer, or not game designer, but game player. But I'll leave the next part to you here to talk about.
Hello, I'm Mike Pontelli, otherwise known as Ponte. Gerald, a few years ago, approached me with this vision of the game, and he had a prototype. And I'm known to be a very harsh critic of games. I am a scientist, so I have a deep passion for understanding systems and mechanics. So I get a lot of pleasure out of game mechanics, and I can often spot and exploit holes in those mechanics. And any his
I'll say
sorry.
I'm just going to interject real quick and just say that Ponte is a very good gamer as far as finding combinations and all of those kinds of things, and hyper competitive.
So he approached me with his first version of the game, and we worked on it for a while. It was slowly evolving, getting more and more intriguing, but I wasn't really fond of it. There were some things that I just felt were missing in the mechanics, and I felt though that I wanted to see his vision for the game come to fruition. So I kind of gave him a really intense, harsh critic of that version of the game, which
I withstood, basically, but maybe not that night because I did get nauseous from the amount of critique on that first night was really intense. But I think I kept on. Well, I listened to you and made a lot of the improvements. I came back to you with a better version pretty much every time.
That there was one that was really big, and we got into a pretty big argument about it. He was very defensive, but then like a few weeks later, he comes back with this version that answered every complaint that I had, and right there it felt like, okay, now this is turning into something, that will be awesome. And so we developed this working relationship where he would be the authority on the rules in a way, and then send them to me, and I would try and poke holes and come up with broken combinations. And then he would ask me, like, show me, prove it. And I would, and then he would address it. We'd come up with ideas, and he would, come back to me with a new set of rules. And we went back and forth for a long time.
And I joke around and I say that I'm the creator and that you're the destroyer. And it's worked quite well. And we've had a lot of battles. But it's been 5 years now.
And this year, But like
And
this,
so, yeah, the game has steadily improved. A couple big leaps, also some breaks. But then, really, like a year ago, actually, I think we both thought it was done, but it
it
wasn't.
wasn't quite
And
done yet.
actually, at that point, we sent it out for a review from Father Geek, so not a good review. But
But the pandemic was here,
to save the day, and
provided a lot of inspiration.
yeah, that's when we added the toilet paper to the game. Yeah, so, but really in the last year, the game has kind of come together.
This by the end of middle or end of this summer, I finally could not poke any more holes into the game. And that's when I think Gerald and I both thought, now is the time. This is the completed product.
Right.
And we play
The
tested
rules, I thought the rules were done now.
Yeah, there's always something that you find in every iteration that you go over. There's just one more thing that you find, but it's just.
But that's when the game started giving back to us. Because that's when ideas were popping up, and because it was such a good simulation, the ideas worked. They were like plug and play ideas. And that's really the funnest part of a game design, is after you slog through everything, at least for us in this process, the game gives back. And I think this last scenario is the perfect example of that. We just recently had an idea for that came from the internet, but to do one where you're trying to lock zombies into rooms in order to save them for a cure, which is a highly reasonable thing to do, and that just plugged right into this game, and we have a great new scenario, and that has brought like new life for me as the designer who's been playing it for 5 years.
It's a totally different style of play, and nothing in the rules change. It's just the scenario, and it forces you to play differently.
Yeah, totally differently. But
one of the wonderful things about it finally like reaching that level of a decent simulation is that it starts to have endless replayability. You can invent scenarios. Yeah. You can rearrange the maps.
There's a lot you can do with it, yeah. But interestingly, I would like to take this opportunity to talk a little bit about some of the drawbacks or complaints that I've heard through 5 years of game development, and interesting or curious or aspects to this game that's really set it apart from other games. Your characters can die from a bite, and you start out with 2 characters, and those are your hit points. And so, in this game, you have to play that you are playing not to go out and bash a billion zombies, but you're playing to not get bit. And it's a completely different style of play. And I'm sure that there's other games, but that's the horror in it, is that you are on edge. And so if this is, if you are like, I want to go out and kill a million zombies and not worry too much, and maybe I get bit, but it's a wound or whatever, I don't want to worry, that's not the game for you.
Every turn in this game is stressful. Every turn could go horrifically bad. And
yeah, it's about redundancy and knowing when to take your risks, but
there's a lot of risk management in this game. It's one of the
and we use dice
critical skills.
So, if you don't like dice, you're not gonna like this game. So,
well, that's an interesting that's an interesting part of this game, is that I don't tend to like dice games. I had a bad incident with Axis and Allies about 20 years ago, and that was it for me. And I didn't play a dice game since then until we started working on Card Z. And the fun part was trying to incorporate mechanics that I enjoy in a non-dice game and bringing them to Card Z. And Gerald has the dice, the probabilities fine-tuned. Every weapon feels realistic. Everything that happens within the game feels realistic, even with the chaos of dice rolling. And so it's interesting. This game actually gave me some renewed respect for a dice game.
Well, that's a great honor. Um, but yeah, that's cool. I mean, and I love
It's
that.
not just a dice game.
I'm a war gamer. Okay, like that's really like my love is war games, and I love Columbia game systems. They're just, I think, the best. Um, but with this system, I always loved D10, obviously, for the reason that it's so easy to go to percentages, and the D10 in this system is built in a way that whatever the number is your percentage to miss. So if you're to hit is a 4, that's a 40% chance of missing. And you roll one die, D10, and then if you roll 0, which is a critical miss, like in a gun, you'll roll that other 0, and that's when it'll split out to a fine measurement. And that's what can differentiate a Glock from, I don't know, Ruger or something like that. A Glock is, one of the most reliable handguns ever made, so I think it would give it a 1% chance of failing on a jam, where as the Ruger might only still be 2% or 3% because the Ruger's still actually
but it makes
very
a
good
difference.
pistol. But it's a way that you can differentiate, make these fine differentiations between the weapons, and that I find very satisfying.
when you are playing the game, every weapon that you find as loot, each weapon individually. You develop a relationship and an understanding of what that weapon how that weapon actually functions in the battlefield.
I'm very proud of the loot deck. But yeah, so let's wrap it up, because I think you get a sense of who we are and where we're going with the game. And there's tons of videos and stuff that we made. But what do you want to talk about before we finish this thing? Is there something you want to mention? I mean, I wanted to talk about a little bit about where it's going to go, and that I also wanted to talk about that this is our first Kickstarter, and hopefully that we may have more. We love this game. We still love playing this game to this day.
After thousands of play tests.
After 5 years, I really never would have guessed it. And we would love to take it to the next level and make it a little bit more epic with skills where you level up, make it more RPG and more of an epic game that you could play smaller games within it. But that's really up to everybody here whether we're going to keep on working on this stuff, because I don't know. Well, we'll see how everything goes, but we really hope that this funds. It would be fun to keep at it.
One of the cool experiences of this journey is when you're at a game convention and you introduce the game to new people and they start playing it, and they start really, really loving the game, and then they walk around and then they come back again for another turn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and that's awesome. Really rewarding.
Very satisfying. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. Well, that's, I think, really I'm just going to speak for myself, but people sometimes ask you, why would you design a game? Because really it's a ton of time and probably a good chance you're not going to make any money at it. Probably you're going to lose money. But the desire, I think, is simple. It's that because when you were a kid, you had such an amazing experience playing these games that you want to provide that experience for for other people.
But you want to provide them a new experience that is just as awesome as the ones you experienced as a kid. And for me, there's a constant enjoyment in inventing systems.
Yeah, the systems is big.
I don't think that passion for me will ever cease.
Yes.
So that's something I really got out of this journey.
All right, well, that's going to wrap it up, I think. So I hope that you guys enjoy what you've seen us create here, and thank you.
I think you can get